it's such a dramatically different shift from like,
Yes.
you know, what Starside is. Does that feel kind of refreshing to step away from this universe for a little bit and dabble into something else?
It is. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And we have a ton of other ideas that are all extremely different from each other. And that we're just, you know, holding on to for when the time is right to work on those other projects. It's a lot of fun to be able to just say, you know, I want to put on some spooky music and dive into Victorian horror, or I want to brainstorm for our sort of Saturday morning cartoon webcomic that we, you know, have been brainstorming about, and just because burnout is very real. Everyone knows burnout. Everyone's experienced it, and being able to kind of move yourself over to something completely different is such a necessary part of the process.
Does any of it feel like overwhelming, or are you just like not at that process of overwhelmed with some of these other projects yet?
When are we not overwhelmed? Yeah. What are you talking about?
We're an overwhelmed bunch, at least me and Lena.
Yeah, that's our natural state of being. We constantly have conversations about that it's okay to, you know, we've talked about input mode and output mode, and that when you are burnt out or overwhelmed, it is okay to go into input mode where you're reading a book that you want to read for fun, whether it's, you know, I just was reading a book about hot dogs. It was a great book and completely unrelated to anything that we're working on. And that's totally fine. And that's great, because where are you going to get ideas if you're not just watching movies, reading other comics, reading novels, going outside and living life? You know, you have to step away and go into input mode and relax. And then you will be able to be better when you're in output mode.
100%. You really do need that reset button. And yeah, it's hard to like accept it sometimes when you have so many things going on. And, you know, we were just talking about anxiety earlier in the episode, and that's kind of where like a big key part of it kicks in, is that you get all these opportunities and you're finally like making stories the way you've always wanted to make them. And you're finally doing stuff that you've always looked up to. And you're like, it's in my hands. I don't want to let it go. And I don't want to like, you know, take too long, because now I'm feeling lazy. And now I'm on social media and they're saying, if you're not like, you know, at it 100% of the time, you're not going to make it. Do you really want it? Is this passion?
Yeah.
And you're just like, I'm just like, now I'm even killing myself even more than if I would have just been like trying to do this for fun, like I intended to.
Yeah.
You know, like just remember that it's just comics. When at the end of the day, like it's just comics.
Yeah. It's funny that I think the one, like, I don't know what you'd call it, but that's like overly positive thing of like, I know there's little like things like, oh, you know,
like motivational.
Yeah, like those motivational things that like really kind of got me like extra anxious, was like, oh, you should be writing like 500 words a day or something like that. And it's like, all right, but what if I don't want to? You know what I mean? Like, should I not be doing this? Am I not deserving of, you know? And it's like years ago that would cripple me, but now it's just like, write 500 words when you want to, but I do think it involves a lot of like Lane said, like when you're doing things, you know, having that sort of passive thought recorder on, right? Like, you know, you're watching a movie and, you know, you admired the way a director did a shot of something and you're like, it kind of like fits something that I was looking to do, or, you know what I mean? And just, you know, I think that kind of stuff is important. And like,
I sorry to interrupt you real quick. Just inspiration comes from absolutely everywhere. I had an idea for a one-shot comic that I got from a food show that we were watching, a travel food show, and it just inspired this idea that became something that's completely unrelated, but something I'm very proud of. And so yeah, you never know how or where you're going to get an idea.
Oh, for sure. And that's what you need to do. I mean, we're making like a vegan comic book cookbook right now. Ooh. And that would have never come into fruition if I hadn't had like some random conversations with people. And then all of a sudden, like I think I was watching I forgot what HBO show my girlfriend was watching at the time, and then I just like it just all clicked in my head because I'm always the one like cooking at home. I'm always doing all this stuff, and I'm
Mhm.
trying to always spread that. And like I was like, it just clicked, and you're like, I would have never thought about this if we weren't watching like the Great British Baking Show or something. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You're
yeah.
like brilliant. Like okay, now it's like a fun, exciting project. But yeah, like you need that. You're or else you also might get stagnant, like you're saying too. Like you kind of need that something to like just trigger an idea, and you may not ever, you might be shocked at the ideas you get. I wouldn't have ever thought about making a cookbook of any sort, but now I'm like, I'm really hyped to make this cookbook now. Like,
That's
and
awesome. Yeah.
it's just like the hype of like, man, now I have a team, I have friends that want to pitch into it. Like, we can make this happen. How do we visualize it? Like, and then new research, but then it's like, let me finish these first two projects,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah.
could breathe and get to that first though. Like, that's also the exciting part where I'm like, you have so many things in front of you that you're like, oh, I don't want to play with this toy now, but I want to play with that one because this one seems too hard. But once you get to that other one, you're like, dang, this is even harder because it's like
Yeah.
from nothing,
That is totally a tough thing because you will always get to a point in a project when you feel stuck and or it just feels overwhelming and like you've gotten past the fun part of brainstorming ideas and now
Mhm.
you have to do the hard part, whatever the hard part is for you. And you can jump to another project, but at some point you have to find a way to come back to it. And usually, well, maybe not usually, as everyone is different, of course, but hopefully you'll get an idea when you're not thinking about it that will help you come back to
Mhm.
it and get past that point. But that is always so scary of just like, okay, I'm juggling these 5 different ideas that I love and I'm passionate about, but which one do I work on now? And how do I make sure that I finish at least one of them?
Yeah, no, honestly. And that's the hard part. I mean, going back to where this kind of started was like knowing where it's ending, and that's like a goal for you to reach towards. So when you're mapping it out and you could at least like visualize that like ending scene or just knowing where it's going to wind up, or like, you could even write out that ending real fast and just have it there. You don't got to wait and anxiously like never get to it. You could write it
Yeah.
out and, put it on the paper and then work your way towards it. That's totally okay. Like
Absolutely.
no teacher is going to get mad at you for working that way when you're making
Yes.
comics,
Yeah.
like everyone has permission. But it's like just at least have that goal and at least like work towards it, like have it framed in your office and being like, I'm gonna get to that damn page like eventually, but like just like getting to it, it feels impossible a lot of the time. Like even the series I'm working on right now, like both Teenage Babylon and Fake Your Death, I'm trying to like write out the entire series at once so I could actually connect all the dots. I kind of have the beginnings of each one done and finished, and even like China's working on her part and like Christian's doing stuff for Teenage Babylon, but I'm like, I need to write all of it, and I need to just at least visualize the story to at least prove to
Mhm.
myself too that I could finish writing it, despite even if they finish creating it, as
Right.
a writer. It does mean a lot to like at least know that, the story maybe not didn't completely get made, but I did my part
You
and I
did it.
wrote
Yeah.
all of it, and it
Yeah.
takes a lot of like courage and, energy and effort to do that in itself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I agree.
Your comic books to life and print your comics with